Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is Tuesday, November the 14th, 2023. It is currently 4:34 p.m. Central Time, and I am coming to you live from the Theology Central studio, located right here in Abilene, Texas. November the 14th, 2023. Okay, November the 14th doesn't mean a lot to me. November the 15th doesn't really mean anything to me. November the 16th doesn't. November the 17th, November the 18th. None of those days really have much significance to me. I wouldn't give much thought. November the 14th, is there any memory that, is there something in history? Nothing comes to me. November the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. Nothing really comes to my mind in any way, shape, or form until I received an email and someone said November the 18th anniversary, right? I don't remember the exact subject line on the email, but it said something about an anniversary on November the 18th. And I'm like, what anniversary is on November the 18th? What do we remember on November the 18th? And I started thinking about it. And as soon as I looked at the email, the information was there, but my mind immediately, when I saw the date, was just like, did I remember that this happened on November the 18th? Do I remember this each year? Why do I not associate this event with November? Why do I associate it maybe, I don't know, with summertime? I don't know what I associate it with. I am very, 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 very familiar with the event, but I don't associate it with November the 18th. But the event that we're going to be talking about occurred on November the 18th, 1978. November the 18th, 1978. We are just days away from the anniversary of a horrific, horrible tragedy. And anyone who claims to be a Christian, anyone who believes in the Bible and reads the Bible and claims the Bible is the final authority, this event should bother you in some way, shape, or form. This event should disturb you, and it demonstrates, there's a lot of different things we could talk about theologically, but it definitely should frighten you, and how someone can take the Bible and then lead people to a absolutely tragic and horrible end. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to be pointing you to another podcast where they did a series of broadcasts about what happened on November the 18th, 1978. The name of the podcast is The American Scandal. The American Scandal is the name of the podcast. In fact, let me look here. Or just American Scandal is the name of the podcast. And they did episode 1 about what happened on November the 18th, 1978. On September the 12th, 2023. So you need to look up the American Scandal podcast. Look for the episode that aired or that was published on September the 12th, 2023. And that's the episode we're going to review just a few, maybe a minute or two of, just so that you know a little bit about this and so that you can familiarize yourself and maybe gain even more insight to what happened on November the 18th, 1978, because it is horrible. Anytime, I don't remember how young I was when I first saw the images of it. It was somewhere, I don't know if I saw images in 78. It may have been 79 when I saw the images in it. I mean, I was 10 years of age, maybe 10 years of age in 78. So I don't know if I saw them in 78, saw that on the news, but I know somewhere between, it had to be between the ages of 10 and 11. When I first saw the images, I don't know how I processed it, but as I got a little older, especially once I became a Christian, later on, as a teenager, the images of what happened on November the 18th, 1978 began to scare me to death. They absolutely became, images and nightmares, right? I mean, literally, it scared me because I'm like, okay, so here are people thinking they're following the truth. There's people who someone is using the Bible. Like, wait. How do we know we all can't end up there? Then I just started having all kinds of questions. But here we go. We're going to listen to American Scandal. It's from an episode that was published on September the 12th, 2023. Again, the American Scandal Podcast. Look it up right now on your favorite podcasting app. If you don't have a podcasting app, it's time to download one. American Scandal Podcast. Subscribe to the podcast. Go through they've got lots of episodes, so it may take you a minute to find it. And then you will find the September 12th episode. And once you find it, well, you need to start listening to all of the episodes they did about this event. Here is how their first episode began. Here we go.
It's the morning of November 19th, 1978, in Guyana, a country on the northern coast of South America. A soldier and about 100 other members of the Guyanese military are trudging through a dense jungle in the remote northwest region of the country. The air is thick and humid, and the soldier is worn down from marching all night, pushing through an endless canopy of trees full of poisonous snakes and insects, with the ground so soggy from rain it feels like the soldier is walking through a puddle of glue. And the long night hasn't only been physically exhausting. Just yesterday, dozens of Americans were attacked at a local airstrip and 5 were killed. One of the victims was an important politician back in America, a United States congressman. And rumor has it that the people responsible were members of a fringe religious group living in a settlement carved out of the jungle. The Guyanese soldier and the other members of the military were dispatched to the airstrip in order to investigate, and when they arrived, they discovered a sight of unspeakable carnage. People gunned down in cold blood, a small airplane riddled with bullet holes, and a number of survivors crying out in pain, begging for help. Some of the soldiers stuck around to watch over the airstrip and coordinate the evacuation of survivors, but the rest of the group continued marching forward, making their way to the religious group's settlement, and they were given the instruction to restore order and take whatever steps were necessary to bring the murderers to justice. The soldier pushes through another grove of trees and undergrowth and catches up to one of his fellow troops. After everything they've seen in the last 24 hours, he wants to share some of his concerns about this mission and see if anyone else thinks they should try to get the attention of one of their superiors to change course. Hey, can you hang back a second? I want to ask you something. The other troop slows down. Yeah, what's up? I can't stop thinking about all those bodies back at the airstrip. Nightmare. That's why we got to get these guys. These Americans are madmen. Yeah, but that's what I'm worried about. I feel like we're walking into an ambush. There's only 100 of us, but reports say there's 900 of them. Oh, come on, we've got weapons. But so do they. You've heard the rumors. They're stockpiling guns, and if threatened, they're going to start shooting. Well, we'll shoot back. No. Why are we risking our lives over Americans fighting Americans? Why don't we let them deal with it? It's not our business. It is our business whenever something happens on Guyanese soil. But they haven't shot at us. They're just crazy Americans in the jungle. Now, I know we have orders, but why don't we talk to one of the officers? It's not too late to turn back. The other troop comes to a stop. They haven't shot at one of us yet, but the man they're following, their leader, sounds like he's lost his mind. And what happens if he is building an army? You think he's no threat? No, look, I don't like this mission, not one bit. And I'm not happy we're being put on some cleanup. The Prime Minister has known about these people for a long time. It's not a new problem, but we can't just stand around and do nothing. You saw the bodies at the airstrip. So either we take care of this, or it's going to happen again. And that's the end of the discussion, because right then a commander orders the line to halt. The soldier scans left and right, trying to see through the gauzy morning mist, but he can't make out anything beyond the dozen or so soldiers closest to him, who now stand gripping their rifles. The commander then gives an order to assemble for attack. The soldier falls in with his comrades, and they assume a V formation, with his superior officer at the tip of the V. He silently waves them forward, and they all begin stepping carefully through the mud and brush. With every step, the soldier girds himself for the shrill sound of gunfire. But a moment later, again from somewhere up ahead, one of his fellow troops cries out in horror. Another soldier begins howling, and then another and another. The soldier marches forward, heart pounding, finger hovering over the trigger of his rifle. He still hasn't heard a single gunshot and can't understand why so many of his comrades are screaming and shouting. But when he catches up with the others, he sees it too and falls to his knees. They've arrived at the American settlement called Jonestown and stumbled onto a horror so complete and so unspeakable that all the soldier can do is bring his hands together and pray.
Yes. November the 18th, 1978 was the tragedy of Jonestown. The anniversary is about 4 days away, and what you just heard was the beginning of the first episode of the American Scandal podcast. They did a series on Jonestown. The first episode aired in September of 2023. You need to go find that. You need to listen to it carefully. And you need to do a little research on Jonestown because I think there's important lessons, to learn from it. From the Encyclopedia Britannica, Jonestown. Location, Jonestown, November the 18th, 1978. Location of the mass murder-suicide of members of the California-based People's Temple cult at the behest of their charismatic but paranoid leader, Jim Jones. In Jonestown, agricultural commune, Guyana, the death toll exceeded 900 people, including some 300 who were age 17 and under, making this incident one of the largest mass deaths in American history. One of the largest mass deaths in American history that wasn't brought about by, there's always these groups that we want to sometimes demonize and say, ooh, they're a threat and they're a threat. Sometimes people forget that the threat over and over and over again seems to come from religion, from religious groups, from religious movements, from the church. So many times we say, let's protect our children. Forget about how many children have been sexually molested and abused inside churches. Sometimes people forget horrible things that have been done in the name of God or in the name of Christ. Or sometimes people forget what happened on November the 18th, 1978, where over 900 people died, a part of a religious commune. You say, well, it was a cult. Still religion is involved. Still God, Jesus, the Bible. Still these things are involved. Making it the incident one of the largest mass deaths in American history. Again, over 900 died. Over 300 who were age 17 and under. That's children. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with Jonestown. Again, I don't know how it's impacted you over your life. I have watched and read too many things about it. It has always bothered me. It just bothers me because how did this happen? How did this occur? Why did it occur? Could I be victim of it? Could you be victim of it? There's so many questions I have in regards to Jonestown. So all I wanted to do today was at least turn on the microphone and say, hey, here's a podcast. And I am so thankful that the listener emailed me and sent me the link because, to be honest with you, November the 14th would have turned into November the 15th, which would have turned into the 16th, which would have turned into the 17th, which would have turned into the 18th, and then it would have been the 19th, and I would have not even probably thought about it. Maybe I would have seen something in the news finally. I'm assuming there'll be a lot of broadcast and discussion about Jonestown, maybe on November the 18th. Who knows? Depending on what's going on. There's enough tragedy going on in our world in 2023. Maybe people won't have time to remember what occurred. But I think it's a very important lesson about cults, about a very important lesson. And I hate to bring this up, but I think it may need to be discussed. I think it also demonstrates what someone can do with a Bible and how they can take that and, not only believe things that we would say is contrary to it, but make other people believe things that are contrary to it. How does that work? How does it happen? Well, because to me, I know this. It's a big leap. Listen, I understand it's a big leap from Jonestown to what we see happen every Sunday in America. I know the two are not comparable in severity and in death, and I know that. I'm saying, though, what scares me is that everyone picks up a Bible and everyone thinks they're right. Everyone thinks their interpretation is right, and everyone will then condemn everyone else as being wrong, a heretic, and possibly tell other people that they're going to hell, all claiming that it comes from the Bible. Now, we could argue, how much was Jonestown really about the Bible versus extra-biblical revelation? And if it's from extra-biblical revelation, then that should scare you to death about charismatics. I mean, there's lots of theological connections to Jonestown that I think we need to discuss. But before we do that, and obviously I'm going to listen to all of these episodes, I want you to go listen to America's Scandal podcast. Look for the episode. In fact, let me go back to it. The first episode was published on September the 12th, 2023. It is entitled Jonestown, Reverend Jim Jones, Number 1. That's the first episode. The American Scandal has talked about a lot of issues on their podcast. Just look for the ones on Jonestown and at least listen to what they have to say. It's not coming from a biblical, theological, Christian perspective. It's coming at it more from telling the story, probably from a historical perspective. You may hear their worldview articulated in it. So just make sure you understand that content may not necessarily be what you want as a Christian, but they seem to have done a very good job. That is very compelling podcasting right there at the beginning. And so I want you to listen to it, and not just take everything they say for, as if it's perfectly accurate. Verify statements, verify things, look up other accounts, but just familiarize yourself with the events of November the 18th. 1978, November the 18th, 1978. Familiarize with the events of what occurred on that day. Of course, November the 19th is when the troops come in and discover all of the dead bodies. And then once you piece it all together and you kind of know, here's what happened, not just on November the 18th, the days leading up to it. How did they even end up in Guyana? How did they even end up? Where did this all begin? Which state did it begin in? Does anybody know which state? There are some questions there. Put it all together. And then once you have kind of a complete picture of the origin, how it developed, its evolution, and its tragic end, then you can step back and go, okay, what are some warning signs here? What are some lessons that we can learn about this and apply to our own spiritual lives, and questions about religious authority and scripture and extra biblical revelation and so many other very important theological concepts. But instead of just jumping the gun and start talking about all of those things, I'm going to just once again point you to American Scandal podcast. Once you find it, then look for the September the 12th, 2023 episode and listen. As you listen, please email me your thoughts. And if there's something specific, you're like, oh, episode 1, the 15-minute mark, 15-minute to 16-minute mark. Oh, that's a very important statement. Or episode 2, just give me the timestamp. Give me the episode and the timestamp, and then I may pull that clip out and we can review that clip, or we can talk about it. As I'm listening, I may do the same thing and grab just segments of it and parts of it. Typically, I think this is produced by Wondery, I believe. A lot of times I thought they had a lot of their stuff under like a paywall for subscription base. Clearly, this isn't, because I've found it on all of my podcast apps. So, but still, I want them to get the downloads and the streams. So we're not going to be able to review all of it in any way, shape, or form. But we can grab segments for fair use, right? For educational review, analysis purposes. Obviously not for profit. So, we will definitely try to do some of that, but I want you to go listen. I want you to download it and start listening and start having an important conversation and discussion, not only about cults in general, about all of these other theological issues, but before November the 18th, 2023 gets here. Let's try to familiarize ourselves and be well-versed in the events of November the 18th, 1978. Jonestown, where over 900 people died, around 300 children under the age of 17. One of the largest mass deaths in American history. How well versed are you in it? How familiar are you with it? And most importantly, how has that tragedy impacted you spiritually? How does it shape your spirituality? Love to get your thoughts. Thanks for listening. Everyone have a great day. God bless.